This video is going to be a long overdue look at the Ravens signing of Dalvin Cook. Can he help the Ravens offense in what we hope is a 3-game run to the Super Bowl? Was he actually signed to help on the field, or is he just insurance in the event that Gus or Justice Hill or Melvin Gordon goes down? I guess some would say, will he even be active? I'm sure those questions have been addressed by other people at this point. This one's taken me a while to get completed. It obviously seems like a competition between Cook and Melvin Gordon for the third spot on game days. We're going to look at some film here from 4 games, strategically picked 2 games from 2023 with the Jets and 2 games from 2022 with the Vikings, so that you could see and observe, is there any discernible difference in his burst? Is he not making cuts quickly enough? Is there a difference in what he was asked to do with the Jets versus the Vikings as in terms of why things look so bad this year? I do think that his alignment is super deep in the Jets scheme oftentimes, and it looks to me like if he was a half a yard or a yard closer to the line of scrimmage at the time when he's making a cut, windows would be there. Now, some would say, well, that means he's slow. That could be the case. You're free to make evaluations as you watch the film. For me, I think it's a smart pickup. Despite the stats this year for the Jets. And look, we'll get to that in the beginning. 67 carries for 214 yards. Only 3.2 yards per carry. Not good, clearly. In a Jets offense that was disappointing, all the way through after Aaron Rodgers went down early in week 1. Now, Breece Hall, one of the lone bright spots, 223 carries, so big workload coming off an ACL injury himself. Almost 1,000 yards rushing. He did have 4.5 yards per carry, so that all looks good. However, that yards per carry for Breece Hall is way down from his rookie season of 5.8. Small sample size in 2022. I'm sure people will mention that. I think there's plenty of illustration and examples that you'll get here of Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook really having nowhere to go. And I actually have some run plays interspliced together of those 2 guys where I won't point out who's on the field, and you're welcome to tell me the discernible difference that you see between them. I'm not saying that if he got 223 carries that Dalvin Cook could have produced the same number of rushing yards for the Jets in 2023. I do think that his small sample size of runs, 67 carries on the year, is actually a good thing. Because if we do have to call on him at any point during this 3-game run, he's a guy who doesn't have a huge amount of wear and tear so far this year. Let's get the negative or most negative portion of the video out of the way first. Look, significant film here against the Texans and the Falcons from 2023. That's not impressive. However, as I mentioned in the lead-in, I have interspliced some runs by Breece Hall in here where you see he had similar failures against both of these same 2 teams. As an aside, it is pretty interesting that the Ravens are going to play the Texans on Saturday in the AFC divisional round, and the film that I have here of Cook struggling, or the Jets struggling overall offensively, is primarily against the Texans. And I chose this film about a week and a half ago before I started having major technology issues with my streaming computer. But you can see that there's just nowhere to go for Cook. I'm not sure that there's much in this portion of the video that isn't just short runs where Cook and or Hill have only 2 choices or only one lane to go through, and in this case it happens to be a bad option. His alignment to me at times is deeper with the Jets, and I think the scheme that the Ravens run is particularly read option stuff, pistol option stuff. Now, Dalvin Cook doesn't have experience with the mesh point as it is compared to Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. But certainly everybody runs zone read at this point in the NFL. Everybody practices it at least. Now, the Jets in 2023, there's just not really much that's complementary in terms of a boot off of the run action, which is one way to accomplish some conflict and get players flowing in one direction and maybe create this downhill cutback lane that we would see him hit with the Vikings. And you'll see in some of the film that I have here from late 2022, the Jets just did not offer the same type of secondary option to the play. You saw a lot of draws, a lot of split zone, but you didn't see much in terms of the quarterback keeping it around the edge like you would with the Ravens potentially. And in fact, a lot of teams are going to force a give read because they don't want Lamar to get outside. We've only got 3 football games left in 2023 in order to win the Super Bowl. Is Dalvin Cook going to be the guy that gets 20 carries a game for the Ravens? Well, no, that's not been the MO all season for this offense. It's been an offense that utilizes different guys strategically, according to their strengths. So far, what I think I'm seeing in the film is that Cook looks like a one-cut guy. I wouldn't say that he's a speedster like a Justice Hill or even obviously a Keaton Mitchell. To me, it looks like he's picked up in the event that Gus goes down. They may not have had similar running styles for most of their career. For what I'm seeing on film right now, I think that Dalvin Cook's best role is in the event that Gus goes down during the playoffs or prior to the Super Bowl, we have a guy that we can fill in, and he can give us those 8, 10, 12 carries a game on some downhill stuff, on some counter stuff, off tackle, gap schemes, zone schemes. He seems comfortable in either. One element to the Dalvin Cook film from 2022 and 2023 that surprised me is his ability to thwart the defense, particularly inside linebackers, in the pass game. Be it film from either year, Cook looks like a guy who's smooth running routes, even from an outside receiver position, and I didn't know that was in his skill set. I looked at him with the Vikings particularly as a guy who ran the ball a lot, particularly with a fullback in front of him, and then occasionally got the ball on a screen. Do I think that there's no burst there? No, I don't. Again, I'm not looking at him as a guy to spell or replace Justice Hill. I'm looking at him as a guy to be the third running back who's active. Certainly not someone who's played on special teams much in his career, but to be someone to get the football in place of Gus if Gus goes down. But 2 of these routes against the Colts late in 2022 are pretty damn impressive. He's an outside receiver here. This is basically a Z-under concept. Now, the Colts are playing a softer coverage because it's a long down to gain on 2nd and 10. He looks smooth to me. Even better on this one. Again, lined up at the outside receiver position. I'm not sure that Justice and Gus give us this. They certainly don't give us the type of route running that I've seen with simple routes. It's a Z under and then just a little tunnel screen. I haven't seen those guys line up outside and have that kind of impact. There might be a little bit of more versatility here than I first presumed, even though the stats in 2023, certainly are not impressive. It's a 64-yard touchdown against the Colts late 2022 on a screen. Maybe you're more familiar with Dalvin Cook's game. Maybe you had watched more Vikings games in the past. Same play, end zone angle, by the way. These are the types of things that I wasn't aware of, and I certainly have never seen film of Gus or Justice Hill or J.K. Dobbins, for that matter, doing things like this from an outside receiver position. Gus obviously has at least 2 really big catches this year, but both of them have been out of the backfield, where Lamar kind of found him in an unstructured situation. These last 2 that you see here and the previous one is just examples of ways that I think he can still help out attacking linebackers or attacking out into the flats, be it a screen or a play-action pass. A series here of some of his best runs that I've gathered film of from the last 2 years. First of all, he's familiar with multiple concepts. Being in the shotgun, the pistol, quarterback under center, short yardage situations. I think he's very smart. I think he sets up blocks well, understands what the scheme is going to look like, how to move to one side to get an inside linebacker to step that way and then make a cut off of it. Either that or he's just got so many carries that I was able to find. He's got so many carries in his career that I was able to find situations where it looks like he's setting second-level defenders up. I think that that's what he does. He's a guy who's had a lot of carries in his career, not so much this year, only 28 years old. I do think that this signing actually kind of bodes well for next year. We do have running back questions for next year. Keaton Mitchell will be coming back from a terrible knee injury, obviously. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are guys that I think we'd like to retain. Dalvin Cook is just another option. It wouldn't surprise me at all if during the playoffs, hopefully we play 3 football games like I said, Dalvin Cook has to come in and give us a 40 or 50 or 60-yard spark in a game where Gus or Justice Hill goes down or isn't even dressed or active in the first place. My play order got mixed up on a couple of these, but when you watch some of the outside zone stuff, to me, there's 2 things to note here. Number one, the Jets don't offer a boot threat That's one of the reasons why I think you lock this on the backside with the tackle instead of having the tackle work down the line and then work up to the backside inside linebacker. Maybe take him this way, allow the quarterback to boot off of it and hold this defender. The Jets don't do that because they don't have the ability to hold that backside defender. So what they end up doing is locking it with the backside tackle. It's a trickle down effect. Instead of the cutback possibly being tackled from behind by that defensive end or outside linebacker, now you have the backside inside linebacker. If he folds over the top, Cook winds it back. There's just nobody there. It is actually a nice job by the left guard in the center for the Jets. He's a guy who's seen everything and been there. I think that to pick up a player of this caliber this late in the year is kind of ridiculous. Thank you to the Jets for making him available. Melvin Gordon was a similar player in the sense that he's had an impact with multiple teams and played well for us at times. I don't think that there's really a equitable talent or comparison between those two. I think Dalvin Cook's the more talented guy. I think he's the guy who, to me, looks like could impact the game more on a play-by-play basis if he had to get in there and play 20, 25 snaps in a game because Gus and or Justice Hill is not available. Short yardage stuff, super smart. Gus is our short yardage guy, has been for years. In fact, some complain about that because Gus has taken touchdowns away from Lamar, I guess. But again, I think you have an example of he knows where he wants to go with the ball, and he'll kind of veer off in the other direction and then bring it back where he wants to be. In some cases, in 2023, I think that's how he's ended up with a shorter gain because the offensive line wasn't that good for the Jets. I don't like to give simplistic explanations, but I think Cook's style of running, he almost reminds me in some ways of Le'Veon Bell. Now, he doesn't get in there and dance. He's a downhill guy, but he's shifty and slides back and forth quickly and adjusts so quickly that all you've got to do is get him one seam, and you're looking at a 6-7 yard gain easily. This is a situation where the boundary side DN stunts inside, fullback has to pick it up, and Cook adjusts immediately, skips out of there, gets 6 or 7 yards. Do I think that he's a guy who, again, my end zone angle is messed up on some of these, so my order is wrong. This is the pin pull pitch around the edge. I have no idea what his pass pro looks like. So that would be my concern, number one. Number two, I did have 2 fumbles on film, one from 2023 and one from 2022. We did see a fumble recently from Melvin Gordon, who's had limited carries for the Ravens in 2023. If it were me, just based on first glance, I would say Dalvin Cook looks like the more talented guy, looks like he should be the third one who is active on game days, but we know we just brought him in. He's only had, I think, a little over a week of practice. Didn't play in the Steelers game. I thought it would have been interesting to see him play in that game. I guess we felt like he wasn't prepared for that situation in terms of our protections and our calls. Lastly, anytime you put any running back you put next to Lamar Jackson is going to be positively impacted, in my opinion. Whether we're under center, whether we're in the shotgun, the pistol, teams have to and do respect Lamar Jackson's ability to run with the football. If you look at the quarterbacks he's played with, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, who I'm not disrespecting, but he's nowhere near Lamar Jackson, shouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath in terms of a guy who can keep it and go the other way. And then the Jets' chaos this year after Aaron Rodgers' injury, there's just no comparison to the threat of the quarterback away from the run action. And I think Lamar's presence just makes running backs better, along with the scheme that we run, zone read stuff, particularly on third and short. Do I think that he's going to come in and have a 100-yard game? No, I wouldn't predict that. It wouldn't surprise me a whole lot. To me, it looks like the talent is still there. The Jets' offensive line, was it that bad? Was it that terrible in 2023 that he could have averaged over 4 yards a carry if he had played with us all year? That's the question, I guess, that you should try to answer, that we all should as fans. I think the answer is yes. I think if he plays for the Ravens in 2023, you're looking at a guy who has similar numbers to Justice Hill and or Gus, depending on the amount of opportunities that he gets. If all 3 of them are dressed and active every game, then of course all of their numbers are going to be suppressed in this theoretical situation where he's with Baltimore all of 2023. I have no idea what his intentions are for 2024. Have no idea how it's going to turn out in the playoffs. I think it's a brilliant move by our organization and front office to bring in a guy of this caliber who has this much confidence and who other players are going to have confidence in, with the possibility that he comes back in 2024. That to me is what just pushes this over the top and makes it a great signing this late in the year for my money. You may disagree, it's no problem. I think it's a low risk, medium to high reward long term, and I think it's a low risk, high reward in the playoffs. If we do have someone go down, God forbid 2 running backs go down, what would we do? Who would we have available? With Keaton Mitchell out, J.K. Dobbins obviously out for the year since week 1. I think it's a brilliant signing. I am a fan. I didn't get to produce anything film study related for a couple of reasons. Technology difficulties over the weekend. So you guys let me know what you think of the film study and the videos or the plays that I chose to use in this video to illustrate the skills that I think are still there, number 1. And number 2, if you think Dalvin Cook looks like a guy who could help us during this 3-game stretch, hopefully to the Ravens' 3rd Super Bowl.